Happy Monday and welcome to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We have two stacked hours for you, and I do mean stacked. We got superstar guest AJ Dybantsa going to join us. We'll talk a little college basketball with him. DEAN Blandino on the slate to join us today. I can't imagine what we'll talk to him about. I don't know, officiating controversy, maybe? But Caroline Fenton, Jason
Was there
Fitz
one
the
of
next
those
2 hours
this
as we
weekend,
break.
Fitz?
Oh, well, it depends on who you ask. We'll get into that a little later, too. All right, but let's start with the late night magic that we had. While everybody was trying to figure out how to get through the Sunday scaries, Bears fans were scared to death late in the fourth quarter when Caleb Williams found himself dropping back and back and back and then heaving what turned into a 40-yard Hail Mary-like pass that ended up being the game-tying touchdown that sent them to overtime. Then all of a sudden, in overtime, they can't get the magic to continue. The most magical team in the league this year, the Bears, finally have the magic run out. But peek behind the curtain, Caroline, we were sitting there in our group text watching that drive go down, and you called something. You called something long before it ever happened. As the Bears had the ball, you asked the great question, should the Bears go for two? Now that we see the way the game played out, what do you think?
To be fair, let me just put it out there because I know there's always some armchair head coaching that we do on Monday morning. I asked that question before the Bears even scored, like before that miraculous, truly miraculous Caleb Williams touchdown pass. I'm sure the Chicago Pope just had like a little bit of intervention there, has been putting up some good words with the big man to try and make plays like that possible. Those are plays that the Bears have been getting off all season long. But I asked the question, should the Bears go for two before they even scored? And I said, before the Bears even scored, I said, if I'm Ben Johnson, I would go for two there. And the reason why I would, and yes, the Bears had the environment on their side. They're at home. They're at Soldier Field. It is freezing cold. The Rams have cayenne pepper in their shoes for some reason, whatever that was. So yes, the Bears did have the advantage of the environment on their side. But I am always of the belief that if you are at a talent disadvantage, and if you are at an experience disadvantage, or if you can just evaluate the way that a game is going, and you are at some sort of a disadvantage, end the game as soon as you possibly can. The longer and longer that you draw a game out, the more and more the talent and experience disadvantage starts to rear its ugly head. That's what I think the Bears had. The Bears are at a talent disadvantage and an experience disadvantage against the Rams. And let me just say, I think the Rams have one of the most talented rosters in the NFL. I think a majority of teams would be at a talent disadvantage against this Rams team. So if the Bears had an opportunity at home to close it out right there, take that opportunity. Now, to be fair, though, the Bears had struggled in some short yardage situations. The Bears were 3 of 6 on fourth down. Those fourth and shorts, those third and shorts, they were struggling a bit with those. I mean, that Rams defensive front is absolutely positively nasty. But my overall philosophy is close it out as soon as you possibly can when you are at a disadvantage. I also should point out, though, the Bears had an opportunity to win it in overtime. The Bears forced a 3 and out in the Rams' first possession of overtime. The Bears did the hard thing, and that was stopping Matthew Stafford in this Rams offense. Caleb Williams just ended up coughing the ball up and throwing an interception on the next possession. But also, if we want to get a feel for the game, if we want to get, go off of the feel for the game, Caleb Williams had thrown 2 interceptions prior. So that's another thing that you have to think about is, yes, we want the ball in Caleb Williams' hands, but we also have to understand the highest of highs from Caleb Williams, and we saw that with that final touchdown pass, also come with the lowest of lows. So I'm not just armchair quarterbacking today. I said it before they even scored. If I'm Ben Johnson, I would have gone for 2 there. No guarantee that you would have gotten it, but it's at least fair to ask, like, if the Bears had gone for 2, would we be talking about the Bears' first trip to the NFC Championship game in how long?
I mean, look at this quote from Ben Johnson. Probably what played a little bit of a factor was our goal-to-go situations hadn't gone very cleanly. I just felt better about taking our chances there in overtime. The whole reason this game was where it was because they were continually aggressive on 3rd and short and 4th and short and had a hard time converting. So I hear that, but I also think you can't change your identity late in this game. You left out one other major factor that I think leans to why they go for 2. The entire place was shocked. Every single Rams defender, look at the images of Sean McVay's face as that completion happens in the end zone, and there's just stunned looks on everybody's faces. I think you had a team up against the ropes that was trying to figure out how to come back emotionally from what they just let happen on a play where you know
True.
that the football gods have kissed the Bears all year. So you got the Rams up against the ropes. You got the Rams trying to shake off a knockout punch. Go out there and do the damn thing. So I think to your point, what we learned in this game was a little bit of the Bears just not being ready for this moment organizationally. And I think the Caleb point is an important one because, yes, we can look at the miracle throw. But as they pointed out on the Westwood One radio broadcast coming into the beginning of this game, a stat I did not know. Coming into this playoff game, Caleb Williams had the lowest completion percentage of any starting quarterback in the NFL for the season. On top of that, his wide receivers had the highest separation rate in the entire NFL for the year. So what does that tell you? That tells you his guys run open and he's not accurate. We know that about Caleb this year. We've talked about his completion percentage, but we've also talked about the miracle endings of games. Well, you got your miracle ending, but do I really want to trust an entire overtime where now Caleb Williams is going to have to outduel Matt Stafford, who walked into that moment with 55 career fourth quarter and overtime winning drives, 55 of them. So you're talking about a wild difference in overall experience in these situations. If I've got somebody, an organization, a coaching staff, a quarterback, a team as experienced as the Rams up against the ropes, man, I'm going for the kill shot. I'm going for the kill shot all day, every day. I'm surprised that Ben Johnson didn't do it, and I think it's going to sit in the minds of the Bears organization for a long time. So what did we learn about the Rams, though? Because you mentioned the cayenne pepper, all of these things. Like, the Rams did not play a clean football game. The Rams looked cold and slow. Stafford was not the Stafford. Stafford even admitted he had a hard time getting into rhythm. But when they needed the big moment, he had him. So what do you take away from the Rams in this sort of a win?
I think defensively is probably the biggest story of the game for the Rams. The defense was nasty. Plays that Omar Speights made, plays that secondary made. I think we need to point out the secondaries for both of these teams. Not always the sexiest thing to talk about on a Monday morning coming off the divisional round of the playoffs, but the secondary has been a weakness for the Bears for really a majority of the season. We saw Kevin Byard flying around making massive plays. We've seen some of these draft picks that the Bears have made over the last several years come to fruition, and for the Rams as well. On a day when it is bitter cold and you have an aging quarterback who doesn't play his best brand of football in the cold, we have plenty of a sample size showing that. I thought the Rams defense stepped up in a massive way. And this is something that I've been talking about for the last several months when I was really on the Rams bandwagon, when I was really kind of pounding the table for the Rams being the best team in the NFL. And I kept saying, we're not talking about the Rams defense enough because we are also offensive obsessed. And we're also obsessed with Matthew Stafford as a potential MVP candidate, maybe even a likely MVP candidate at this point. Sean McVay being the brightest offensive mind in the National Football League. We haven't talked very much about their defense because there haven't been very many games, at least big time games and marquee games, where the Rams defense needed to take over. That's exactly what they did in Soldier Field yesterday, coming up with massive plays when they needed it most.
Yeah, and this is the moment where, look, King Kong got put in the freezer and had a hard time with it. And I get that. But if I'm the Rams and I'm walking out of this, I'm the only team this weekend that got a road win in the playoffs. And I got a road win in that environment. I got a road win against the team that has been kissed by the football gods all year. I got a road win with an old quarterback with back issues that hurt his throwing hand last week, that had to play in negative wind chill throughout the course of that game, where absolutely everything in his body was tightening up throughout the entire course of the game. If I am the Seattle Seahawks, man, I let out a damn at the end of this football game because I'd have been much happier with Chicago having to come to Seattle than I am with the Rams. We now get part 3 of what's turned out to be 2 of the wildest games this year, where there have been times that the Rams were completely in control, but Seattle, obviously, they split this series this year. Does Sam Darnold have a Rams problem? I don't know. I walked out of all of this, Caroline, saying for the Rams to survive these elements, man, I feel even – if I'm Seattle, I feel even more nervous because that Rams team just survived that moment.
You're getting the better team. And that's exactly why I said if I was Ben Johnson, I would have gone for 2 after that miraculous Caleb Williams touchdown, is because The Rams are one of the most complete teams, if not the most complete team in the entire National Football League. You have a quarterback with a ton of postseason experience. You have one of the best coaches in the NFL in Sean McVay. But yeah, if I'm Seattle, I'm thinking, dang it, I got to get this team again. And, familiarity breeds contempt, too. These teams know each other very, very, very well. And when we had the Seahawks-Niners rematch, I was like, I don't need this game for a third time. I'm good. That's not how I feel about getting Seahawks-Rams for a third time. It just kind of felt destined to be these two teams, right, Fitzy? It felt like it was bound to be an NFC West showdown in the NFC Championship Game, how deep that division and competitive that division has been all season long. I'm fired up for this matchup. I don't always love a postseason rematch, but for these two teams, a high-flying offense with the Rams, a stifling defense for the Seahawks, Sam Darnold's opportunity to finally break through and shed that reputation that he has as not being able to win the big games. So much on the line for both of these two teams that have been absolute cinema the last two times that we've seen them previously.
It gives this show more opportunity to argue for a week, because if you've been listening to us most of the year, Caroline's been pretty squarely on the Rams being the number one team. I've been pretty squarely on the Seahawks being the number one team. Now we will get the tie-breaking answer of all answers. Fear not, Seahawks fans. Don't at us. We got plenty of love coming for your team and the absolute ass-whooping that they gave over the course of the weekend. That's still to come. Speaking of still to come, some fallout from a wild AFC weekend, including controversy that is still making everybody yell. We'll get into that call coming up.
And I didn't have any gym equipment. I didn't live near a gym. So I would watch TV, and every commercial break, I'd jump on the floor and bust out some leg lifts from Jane Fonda, or I'd jump on the floor and bust out some push-ups from Herschel Walker. And my dad just saw me doing this for months. And he was like, yo, if you really are that committed, I'll work out with you. And that's really what got me going and doing anything that was athletic, was my dad.
And nobody realized we're fighting for world titles, jerking curtains for a guy from Australia and a dude from the Caucasus region. I would never open a show for a dude from Australia, just so you understand.
Why not?
Ever.
Why not? Why not?
That's not a combat-driven country. That's not real. You can't get a scholarship and go to a college for any combat form in Australia. It's not real.
I wanted to make this into what does it look like moving forward now with Travis Hunter, because the light went on, I think.
The two-way things, like, it's not off the table yet. The sky's not falling. Now the scoreboard reads one season-ending injury. I think if there's another season-ending injury next year, it's done. Maybe the silver lining is, well, he rehabs this knee and goes through this process, his body finally gets a rest.
What do you think could be the next NBA trend?
But I think you're going to see a lot more full court pressure from many teams in the league. So I'm interested to see that. Obviously, every year, everybody talks about wanting to play faster, and sustaining that through 7 games, I think, is easier than being able to sustain it for 82. You're going to see a lot more backcourt pressure in our league this upcoming year. And I like to think that us as a group and the success we had last season will have a lot to do with that.
Somebody really smart and dashingly good-looking tweeted out, are we really sure that the Texans don't have a long-term quarterback problem? I'll be honest with you, Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports Daily. I thought a long time before I pressed send on that tweet. I honestly did. I was sitting there watching, surrounded by Patriots fans, and I kept watching just the meltdown of C.J. Stroud, and this was tweeted out in the first half. As I watched what has turned out to be, I think, one of the worst quarterback performances we've seen in a modern NFL playoff game. That's how bad it was. Caroline, I just kept thinking the same thing. They got to bench him. And then I kept thinking they can't bench him because what's that mean for the future of the quarterback position? And now I'm sitting here saying, do they even have a future at the quarterback position? All C.J. Stroud had to do was be as mid as Trent Dilfer. and he'd be going to the damn Super Bowl. And he couldn't even manage Trent Dilfer. He was so bad in this game that the best unit left in the entire playoffs is headed home somehow, some way. I am stunned by it. And Caroline, I think the Texans have a long-term question to answer, and I'm not sure that answers C.J. Stroud anymore.
The Texans defense is entitled to compensation from C.J. Stroud. He quite literally threw that game away. We're talking about a Texans defense that was nasty. And we're talking about a Texans defense that made the Patriots make their fair share of mistakes as well. I mean, Drake May had how many fumbles in that game? 4, lost 2 of them. I mean, Drake May did not play his best brand of football. The Patriots did not play their best brand of football either. The Patriots made enough mistakes to lose that game as well. And that was credit to the Texans defense for forcing them into some of those kind of uncharacteristic mistakes. But there's only so much that your defense can do. And the Texans defense has been carrying that Texans team really for a large portion of the season, really the back half of the season and into the postseason. And for the most part, that's been enough. But not when your quarterback throws the ball to the other team 4 times in a single half, Fitz. That if you're a Texans fan, I cannot even imagine how frustrated you are today. And if you're a part of that Texans locker room, I think you're even more frustrated. So I hear you on, what do you do with the future of the quarterback position? I hear you on the maybe some hesitation between DeMeco Ryans and the entire front office of making change at the quarterback position. But also, if you're DeMeco Ryans, how do you sell C.J. Stroud to the rest of that locker room moving forward? How do you sell C.J. Stroud to Will Anderson and to Derek Stingley Jr. and to Daniil Hunter and so many Woody Marks and so many pieces of this Texans team that did their job, that did their fair share to win this game and to punch their ticket to the AFC Championship game, but they couldn't overcome what the quarterback was doing. It's the most important position in sports for a reason. So I know the quarterback position is so incredibly difficult, and you can do much worse than C.J. Stroud. Just ask any Jets or Browns fan out there. Sorry to Jets and Browns fans continuing to catch, strays here. But also, if you're DeMeco Ryans, you're going to lose your locker room if you continue to ride with C.J. Stroud. You're going to lose your fan base, and you might even lose your job if you continue to run it back with C.J. Stroud, with a defense that's good enough to win a championship and a quarterback that flushes it down the drain.
And this is where I did get some blowback from some people that said, well, he doesn't have his weapons around him, and the offensive line's not holding up. Go back to the very first throw of the game. The very first throw of the game was a in rhythm, let's just get your quarterback comfortable, little play action rollout by C.J. Stroud, and he throws to a wide open guy that's right there in the flat for him, and he throws it late and behind him, right? And later in the game on a very similar type play, he throws so late and so far behind him that they end up watching somebody's knee just fall apart trying to adjust to the football. We saw several balls that were high in this thing. We saw stupid interceptions that just didn't make any sense. Not every one of them falls squarely on the shoulders of C.J. Stroud, and the Patriots defense deserves credit for playing well. Two things can be true at the same time. The Patriots defense played well, and C.J. Stroud played terribly. Even when he had time in the pocket, his feet were so jittery. You saw him bouncing. He never looked comfortable. Every single person that was watching around me kept saying the same thing. He looks like he's seeing ghosts. That's not what you want from your franchise quarterback. Nobody has been able to make sense to me of how he looks so good his rookie year and how everything has fallen apart since then. But I no longer care about the rookie year portion of this conversation. What I care about is today, C.J. Stroud is not a franchise quarterback. And the Texans have everything else you need to win at a high level. They do not have a franchise quarterback. And it's going to make it very difficult. They're either going to have to bring in a whisperer that can somehow hypnotize him and bring him back to the magic, or they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and find a different player to lead this franchise moving forward. So they look, at the end of the day, all credit to New England. They head to the AFC Championship game. This will be the 15th straight year that either the Chiefs or the Patriots are in the AFC Championship game. So we get more of the same.
Good for Patriots fans. Yeah. They've just been so miserable for so long. They've been lacking success in New England. They finally get to break through.
I was sitting.
And they
in
get to
New
play
England.
Jarrett Stidham.
I was sitting in New England in an area full of Patriots fans, and the number of times I heard, "God, I can't believe we're finally good again." I just wanted to vomit. The whole time. You're right. They're going to take on Jarrett Stidham. They're taking on Jarrett Stidham because of the injury to Bo Nix at the end of what became an instant classic between the Bills and the Broncos. Let's get to that game and all of the elements that we need from that. So when we start talking about Bills, Broncos, let's just get straight to it. What'd you make of the call? Everybody's talking about the call. Everybody's got their eyes on the call. What did you make of the call in this one where it looked like to some a completion, it's ruled an interception, controversy everywhere?
It was an interception. And I know that that's not what Bills fans want to hear today. And frankly, I was shocked at the sheer amount of outrage after that call. And of course, it's a massive and pivotal call and a massive game for a team that's looking to break through and a quarterback that's beloved by everyone, including myself. So I get that portion of it. But I feel like a lot of pushback and people who are, saying that it wasn't an interception, the reason why they're saying that is because they have a stop motion photo to say, look, the ball was in his hands. He had control of the ball. Well, you can't show a still photo in support of your argument because the whole point of it is that the ball was in motion. Let's say let's take the defender out of this. Let's take the interception portion out of this. If Brandon Cooks has possession of the ball, let's just go through that exact same course of events. If the ball pops out, and it's not an interception, the ball pops out in the same exact fashion, just sans defender, that's an incomplete pass, right? He doesn't have control of it. Even though he's on the ground and the ball pops out, that is textbook incomplete pass. And I don't think that would be much pushback from anybody. But there just so happened to be a defender there that when the ball did pop out, the defender got it. So it's a funky interception. It's not one that you see very often. And it was an incredibly unfortunate pivot of events for Buffalo, but it was the right call.
So here's the thing. 100% we agree on this, but let me caveat a few things. Number one, I will, for everybody watching us for the first time or sees this on social media, I'll remind you, I have a Raiders helmet behind me. So certainly I'm never going to root for the Denver Broncos. I need Bills fans to hear that because they all think that there's a bias. Number two, I think at some point, I think what we have to look at through all of this is you got to look at part of the rest of the way this whole play went down. And to your point, there's a lot of comparisons to other plays. He was falling to the ground as he was making the catch. And we're going to get you the breaking news right now. Breaking news just coming in. We'll continue this conversation in a moment. The Bills are moving on from Sean McDermott. So Tom Pelissero is letting us know that the Bills fired Sean McDermott. Sources tell the insiders. We'll try and figure out what that means for the job openings across the landscape. You actually predicted this. You actually predicted the possibility that we would be coming into Monday with no Sean McDermott, Caroline. So this is the reaction that the Bills are giving us from losing this game.
I never want to cheer for anybody losing their jobs because it's not just going to be Sean McDermott. It's that entire Bills coaching staff. I would like to say I told you so. But I think this just goes to show because you don't see coaches fired very often after getting to the divisional round of the playoffs. But this just goes to show the level of frustration within the Buffalo Bills franchise. This just goes to show that an early exit from the postseason, not getting to the Super Bowl, not breaking through, especially in a year where there is no Mahomes, there is no Burrow, there is no Lamar Jackson, that the Bills have consistently fallen short of this standard. That's not good enough anymore, and something has to give. Now, I didn't wake up on Sunday morning and think that the Bills' issue and the reason why the Bills lost that game was because of Sean McDermott. I can't point to coaching. It was squarely on the turnovers. You cannot turn the ball over 5 times in a game and point the finger at anyone other than the team itself. But I think that that the frustration has just kind of boiled over, that the product, not just on Saturday night, but the last several years, some of the regular season losses, some of the postseason losses, that's just not good enough in Buffalo anymore. You have one of the best, if not the best players on the planet as your quarterback in Josh Allen. Losing in the divisional round, not going to cut it.
I think this is part of where my mind goes to this particular game, and the way it was coached, to me, is probably not the main reason that Sean McDermott got fired. This is just another piece of information in the overall concept of why are we firing McDermott. I can't say this loud enough. Josh Allen, I think, is a big reason why the Buffalo Bills lost that football game over the weekend. As much as we all love Josh Allen, and nobody ever critiques Josh Allen, I get it. But The fact is, Josh Allen is the one that, look, we can fault Sean McDermott for deciding to be aggressive with 22 seconds left in the first half. I didn't like it. Take a knee, go to the half, you're down by 7, live to see the second half. They did decide to be aggressive, where Josh Allen weirdly fumbled the ball in a position where he was being willy-nilly with where he was holding the football. So is it McDermott's fault that they decided to be aggressive? Yeah. Is it Josh Allen's fault that the ball was actually fumbled? Yeah. Is McDermott being fired today if Josh Allen hits a wide open tight end towards the end of the game for what would be the game-winning touchdown? Probably not. Like, I get the firing of Sean McDermott because the result overall hasn't been good enough. I completely understand why the Bills are doing what they're doing. That being said, I don't believe that Sean McDermott's incompetence as a coach is the reason that the Buffalo Bills lost over the weekend. The reason the Buffalo Bills lost over the weekend is also not because of the officials. The reason the Buffalo Bills lost was not because of the call. They lost because Josh Allen picked a really bad time to have a terrible non-Josh Allen-like game. If Josh Allen even plays normal Josh Allen football, they're not getting beat in that football game. So they went all the way down to the wire on Josh's worst day, and as a result, Sean McDermott's getting fired. I understand the move, but I still think that this loss is squarely on the shoulders of Josh Allen.
And I will add James Cook into that as well, because James Cook had the back-breaking fumble that Denver scored off of early in the game, I believe in the second quarter. And that was just the Broncos continued to pull away. And look, the Bills fought themselves back into it. The Bills fought themselves back into a position where they could have won that game. They just didn't. And it's hard to blame the two guys that have been, and not even just the foundation, not even just the backbone, but the entirety of this Bills offense. This Bills offense is Josh Allen and James Cook. So you're going to ride the horses that got you there, Josh Allen and James Cook. But to your point, you can't point the finger at anybody but yourselves. When you turn the ball over 5 times in a football game, you lose the privilege to blame anybody else except the ones who turned the ball over. But I don't think Sean McDermott is fired today because of that game. I don't think Sean McDermott is fired in a glass case of just losing the Broncos game, because I don't think that there were any blatantly poor head coaching decisions that Sean McDermott made in that game that single-handedly led to them losing that game. I think it's just a culmination of a lot of things. And I do wonder if the brass in Buffalo had already made their mind up going into that game, that if we fall anything short of a Super Bowl, we have to make a change. I don't know, but I do wonder what the conversations have been like over the last several months.
I will say this. If you're getting rid of McDermott, fine. I totally understand the move. To me, Brandon being the GM, got to be fired too. Like at some point, and this comes back to the organizational decision the Bills made years ago. We had a former Bill player on our draft broadcast for Yahoo Sports a couple of years ago when they were looking at a possible wide receiver in the first round. And he was the one that said, no, organizationally, they don't believe they need wide receivers. They believe any wide receiver can win, and that Josh Allen is worth 40 touchdowns with anything. And that was organizationally the belief. They have not handled the pieces, the necessary pieces around him. So if we're going to get rid of McDermott because the defense hadn't held up to their end of the bargain, I understand it. But also, you've made Josh Allen go out and single-handedly lift this team over and over and over and over again. So if you are deciding that the standard, the status quo is not good enough, I totally support that. But I also got to look at it and say, then get rid of Brandon Beane, because at some point the elements around, if we believe that Josh Allen is absolutely one of the great players of this generation, and I do, if we believe that and we believe that the result has failed Josh Allen, which I agree with, if we're going to take that out on the coach, take it out on the GM too for not giving him more weapons and not finding a way to bring in more pieces that can help Josh Allen do his job to the best of his ability. If you're going to make some change, make all the change.
It's not rocket science. We have seen, let's use Patrick Mahomes as an example, another one of the best quarterbacks on the planet, elite playmakers. We view him as Superman in the same light that we view Josh Allen, and rightfully so. But we know what Patrick Mahomes looks like when Travis Kelce has just gotten to an age where he's not the same Travis Kelce that he used to be, with, no Rashee Rice, with no Xavier Worthy. I mean, a big portion why Patrick Mahomes is viewed as the modern day post Tom Brady best quarterback in the league is because he's got pieces around him, including Chris Jones and that Chiefs defense, including his head coach and Andy Reid. Yes, Patrick Mahomes, he himself is elite and he is a magician, but you can't do it by yourself. You need those pieces around you. We have proof of concept with other elite receivers in the league, and Keon Coleman was supposed to be that, but he's not that. We at least have enough of a sample size, games and seasons, where we know Keon Coleman is not that certified number one lockdown kind of receiver. So I think the Bills have to look around, not just offensively, but defensively as well. That run defense stinks. That run defense has been terrible all season long. So I don't disagree with you that something needs to change in terms of the talent evaluation. But maybe the brass in Buffalo looks at it and says, look, we're giving you the pieces. You're just not developing it. You're not putting these talented players in a position to win football games. And that's exactly why Sean McDermott has lost his job. But I do wonder where Buffalo goes from here at the head coaching position this late in the hiring cycle.
Ian Rappaport now tweeting out Brandon Beane will remain and help lead the search. So there's a lot of breaking news coming out of Buffalo. We will continue to get you that breaking news. But coming up, everybody has this controversial take about what we saw over the weekend from the Bills, Broncos, the call. We're going to talk to one of the most qualified people in the world to break it down. Dean Blandino joins us next.
Alex Golesh to Auburn. I got no clue if he's going to win there. I am irrationally excited, though, about Alex Golesh at Auburn. I know what works at Auburn. I grew up around Auburn. We've seen a whole lot of what doesn't work at Auburn, haven't we, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, we have. You don't even have to be an Auburn fan to shake your head. The difference is Auburn people are shaking their heads frowning, whereas LSU and Bama and Georgia folks are shaking their heads laughing.
I have a tweet that I want to read to you.
Yes.
Game 5 of last year, we lost to the Knicks. I didn't play very well. This was in New York. We came back, won Game 6, won Game 7. You tweeted, Tyrese Halliburton dilly-dallies around the perimeter too much on offense. Too much of a cone on defense. He needs to take this offseason to figure out who he wants to be.
That's too hard. Sometimes I get emotional.
If I change your mind, cool. That's part of being an athlete. I'm all game with it.
There was a guy named Tony Khan, the head of AEW. In a million years, I never would have thought this guy would come on. He hated me.
Wait, why? Because you guys had beef?
We had beef, big beef, yes.
Who do you not have beef with, Eric?
Not that many people, but the point is, when it's beef, it gets magnified. Okay, it gets magnified. But Tony came in, we shook hands, we made amends, we hugged, and all was good. That's what grown-ups do.
This new young generation coming into the NBA, like, what is the why for them wanting to do all these things off the court?
And I mean, for me, it's always been like, what is authentic to me? You're making the money you're making from the NBA, and God bless us, we're blessed. So now you got guys saving and doing right by their money that they make from the league. So when you get off the floor, it's like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and just do what I want to do. May not be the big ticket financially that I want, but it's authentic to who I am and what I want to do.
If it is ruled that way, then why wasn't it slowed down? Just to make sure that we have this right. That would have made a lot of sense to me, to make sure that we have this thing right, because that's a pivotal play in the game. We have the ball at the 20, maybe kicking a game-winning field goal right there. So I'll just leave it at that. Right. But I'm saying it because I'm standing up for Buffalo, damn it. I'm standing up for us. Because what went on is not how it should go down, in my estimation. That play, these guys spent 3 hours out there playing football, pouring their guts out, to not even say, hey, let's just slow this thing down. That's why I'm bothered.
That was Sean McDermott speaking after the game about the controversial call, and now we should let the world know that if you've missed the breaking news, Sean McDermott has been fired this morning by the Buffalo Bills. So to break it down, somebody that I've had the chance to work with a lot in my career, one of the smartest in the business for this. Let's get right to this. Dean Blandino, NFL rules analyst at Fox, joins us. Dean, you heard what McDermott had to say. First and foremost, you've had time to look at this call a million times like all of us had.
Yeah.
What did you make of the call? Was it the right call?
I think ultimately it was, but I think what Sean is saying, I agree with, and that was my initial thought when it happened. When the play occurs, right, it's called a turnover, so there's time. You've got to stop the game and go through a full review. It just felt like it's too big a moment. It's too big of a play. Now, look, there are people in New York in the command center that are looking at those plays. They obviously felt that the call was correct. They cleared it. To me, it's just too big a play in overtime that you've got to stop the game, bring the referee over. Don't leave any doubt that you looked at every angle, you analyzed it. And I think that might have made it, look, you're still going to have people that disagree with the call. I happen to think it was the right call because I thought Cooks was going to the ground. He has to maintain control when he hits the ground, not just his knees, not just everything beyond the ground. Ball loose when he hit the ground. I thought McMillan ended up with it. It was ruled an interception. I didn't think there was anything on the video that you could change it. But again, it's overtime. It's the playoffs. Why not take the time to look through it, analyze it, and kind of eliminate any doubt that you went through that process?
Just want to acknowledge the hardest working man in sports on the road and still providing us all of his insight. So appreciate you, Dean. But I do want to stick on that for a moment. How quickly
I'm actually, yes, I'm on my way to the airport for the. Yeah, no question.
Well,
I mean, there is this process that goes on all turnovers, all scoring plays, and they're looking through it. But again, McDermott had to call a timeout to give them more time to look at it. That just shouldn't happen in that situation. Like I said, it's too big of a play. You got to stop the game. You got to go through the process.
So, Dean, this is where I come back to something you and I have talked a lot about. And for anyone that doesn't know, I worked on the comeback of the XFL at ESPN, and Dean was the rules analyst there at the XFL. I hosted the studio show on this, and we talked about this a lot at the time. Dean was mic'd up. So every time there was a replay, they went to the command center for the XFL. Dean with the microphone explained exactly what they saw, what you saw, and why. There were times we thought you were making the wrong call in studio, and then we heard your explanation. We're like, okay, I kind of get it. The NFL literally took the new kickoff rules from the XFL. We know that they looked at these things. Why has the NFL not integrated? The most easy thing they could do right now is transparency. Why are they not miking up and putting cameras in their command center so we know what the hell they're actually doing, Dean?
I think it's such a great question. Look, the transparency, if we were all able to listen to what went on after that play, the conversation that took place, again, we might not always agree with it, but at least we'd understand the why. And that is so important. We felt that way with the XFL and now with the UFL. If the fans can understand why we're making a decision, it eliminates any of the conspiracies. It eliminates any of the confusion. And I think the NFL needs to ramp that up because these plays, you have so much debate, you have so much conversation around it, and it would really help versus just a pool report after the game where you have a referee that wasn't even involved in that decision doing the pool report and trying to explain it to everybody. It just feels like that process is not working, and we need more transparency, and I think that would help.
And Dean, there were a couple of very pivotal defensive pass interferences called against the Bills in overtime. And I didn't have a problem with the calls because if you see it, call it, and it was DPI. But, and we'll throw up a couple of photos here. There was that on the left side, on the right side. That was not called defensive pass interference. On the left side, it was called defensive pass interference. I don't have a problem with the call. I do have a problem with inconsistency. Why was one called DPI and the other was not?
Yeah, I think that's another great question in terms of you want that consistency. And for that game, look, I don't think the Broncos had an accepted penalty during the game. And if that's where the bar is, if you're going to set that bar and let the players, they say let them play a little bit more and we're going to let them, get away with a little bit more, then that has to be the bar and the standard throughout the game. And it just felt like that non-call at the end of regulation where I didn't think there was as much contact as maybe the ones that occurred in overtime. You certainly could make a case that there was a grab, there was some restriction. And I understand why, Bills fans will look at that and say, well, we didn't get that call, but then you called the one against us in overtime. So pass interference is such a subjective call. It's really, really difficult in real time when you have an official that's moving, that's trying to watch the action. And we get the benefit of slow motion replay. We get multiple angles. But again, I think we're all looking for that consistency. And especially whenever you have a game like that, where at the end of that game, end of regulation, in overtime, every call is going to have such a major impact, every non-call. I think then you get those conversations about that consistency.
All right, Dean. So one thing we always hear, and I talk a lot about when people say refs are biased, is that refs are graded after every performance. We know that. My question to you is, what's the actual consequence from the league when somebody screws something up? What actually happens to an official that blows calls?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that most fans, and look, we want that. When I was at the league office, accountability is really, really important. That lends itself to credibility. If you know that these officials are being held accountable. Look, Sean McDermott is out of a job today. He's out of a job. And so fans are going to look at that and go, wait a minute, what happens to the officials if we think they messed up a call and that impacted a game? What happens to them? And they are held accountable. They're graded on every game, and officials are let go every year. It's just not public, right? They don't publicize that. And look, I'm not saying that we need to, make a big thing and about, we're firing 8 officials. I don't know if that's the answer, but I do think, again, with that transparency, if we could make people understand that they're graded, if they don't grade out well, there are the majority of officials that work during the regular season, they're at home not working postseason because they didn't grade out to the level where they should have. It's a smaller group in the postseason that grade out well. And if you don't grade out well over the course of several years, it could even be 1 year. You could be let go by the NFL. They do let officials go every year. It's just not public knowledge. And I think that's something that maybe the league could do a better job of just messaging and communicating. And I think that would help the credibility of the program.
Dean, nobody does it better than you, my friend. Thanks for the insight. Thanks for the expertise. We truly appreciate you hanging out. Travel safe, brother. Thanks for giving us the expertise in the car.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Great
Dean.
stuff
Appreciate
from
you.
Dean Blandino. I will die on this hill, Caroline. I will just die on this hill quickly. We have learned as a society to adjust to what a completion percentage looks like. If you had told everybody 30 years ago, well, this quarterback completes 70% of their passes, that means something because we've spent generations learning about it. I genuinely believe that if the NFL would ever simply make their grades public when it starts, hey, you've got this rep, this rep, this rep, and they're all shooting 88% right now with their calls. We would, over time, learn to trust that a lot more. Now, the important news here is that, as Dean just referenced, Sean McDermott out is the head coach for the Buffalo Bills this morning. That is the breaking news. McDermott is out. Being the GM will be safe. He is going to help lead the charge for whoever's coming in next. And look, and I'm stunned as we sit here now. We're talking about Pittsburgh. We're talking about Baltimore. We're talking about Buffalo. We talked a lot this year about what an unprecedented year of change this was, just a wild year in the NFL. And now we're seeing 3 of the most stable organizations choose to dip into very unstable waters, including the Buffalo Bills, who now they're making it clear they think that the man on the sideline wasn't going to get them where they needed to go.
Well, and we've seen the Falcons' job get filled with Kevin Stefanski. We've seen the Giants' job get filled with John Harbaugh. We've talked about Baltimore being that elite #1 job available because it is tailor-made and ready to make a run for the Super Bowl. Is Buffalo a better job than Baltimore?
I mean, I guess that depends on how you feel about the quarterback situation. I'd rather have Josh Allen than Lamar Jackson personally. I like Josh more as a quarterback. I know that's a hot take. Now I feel like I'm wading into the Lamar versus Josh Allen waters. But I'd rather have Josh than Lamar. But I don't know. I mean, I think they're very close.
And I think I'm with you. I'd rather have Josh over Lamar. I think I'd rather have the Ravens' entirety of their roster over Buffalo. I think weirdly right now with the changes in the AFC North, I think I'd rather play in the AFC North than the AFC East with the Patriots that just punched their ticket to the AFC Championship game. But I mean, and we can talk all day long about what is a quote unquote better job, which is a better roster, which quarterback do you like better? At that point, I think we're kind of splitting hairs. I think the biggest point remains here, though. Baltimore and Buffalo are 2 premier jobs that are ready to make runs for Super Bowls. In fact, the expectation is Super Bowl. The expectation for the next head coaches that come into those organizations is that you are competing for a Super Bowl next year. Nobody has patience anymore. This is proof of that everyone has run out of patience in Buffalo. That's exactly why Sean McDermott has lost his job fresh off of a trip to the divisional round. And so I wonder who's the right guy for that. Who is the right guy to step into Buffalo and to step into Baltimore and be that missing piece that gets them to a Super Bowl?
I mean, but that right guy's still going to be making chicken salad. Zero Dark Purdy points out in the YouTube chat, the Bills asked Allen to put the entire team on his back year in and year out. How long are you going to expect him to carry the entire team with no wide receiver help? This is what happens. That's why I keep going back to, I cannot believe Bean is safe. I've made the comment on Inside Coverage before we were working on this show together repeatedly to Frank Schwab that I feel like at times the Bills' game plan has been throw the ball out, give it to Josh Allen, and just hope to hell that he can make something happen. That's not the way you build a Super Bowl
it's unsustainable
team, Tim. Yeah, it's wild to me. And Caroline, I would just say this. It's amazing that in a year where the Kansas City Chiefs didn't make the playoffs, I feel like in part because the Chiefs didn't make the playoffs and everybody had this window they couldn't take advantage of, we've now seen mass change from everybody. It just continues to – the Chiefs permeate in the way that everybody does business. Plenty to react to. We'll keep you updated on the biggest breaking news this morning. Again, McDermott out as the head coach in Buffalo. What does it mean? We'll get you every single update along the way. But coming up, we've waited too long to give love to the one team that was absolutely spectacular this weekend, and you're looking at it. Sam Darnold on his own personal revenge tour. We'll tell you about it next.
Perhaps you would be expecting me to say, nice to meet you, but we've actually met once before, Vince. Getting to be backstage at a wrestling event. Kurt Angle took a liking to me for some reason, and he introduced me to you. We were sitting outside having lunch, and he said, hey, this is Ariel. The only thing I remember you saying was, what are you, some kind of smart mark? What are you, some kind of internet fan? And then that was it. I was like, holy, and I remember calling my friend like, I think Vince Russo just insulted me. This is incredible.
People got on me when I talked about Ohtani, and I saw him play one inning of one baseball game when I was still playing, and I looked at Luis Severino. I said, this is the best baseball player I've ever seen in my life. He's the biggest, he's the fastest, he's the strongest, he hits the ball the furthest, he throws the ball the hardest. Like, he is really, incredible. I mean, he really shows up in these big moments, and it's just incredible to be able to watch him do his thing, man.
Every Sunday I'll have the thought, how on earth could a Titans fire Mike Vrabel? Mike Vrabel is one of the best coaches in the NFL and always has been. He's always gotten the most out of his talent. The New England Patriots making it back to the Super Bowl, just 6 years after Tom Brady leaves, when everybody was just dunking on the Patriots and, oh my goodness, Patriots are dead. And them making it back to the Super Bowl would be alternately cool and pretty fun to see everybody lose their minds over.
I always think somewhere somebody's watching their first college football game in person or on TV, and any given game could be that game. This was someone's first college football game yesterday. This person is set up for crushing disappointment the rest of the way, because eventually they're going to watch Rutgers. Northwestern games are going to happen to you. So just prepare. It's okay. You got it. You got to let the bad with the good in. That's all.
All right, this shook me to my core. I'm not going to lie. Can't believe this just hit me. Chase Snyder tweets out, Sam Darnold has a very real chance to be the first quarterback in the 2018 draft class to win a Super Bowl, which may not sound shocking until you realize that Baker, Josh, and Lamar were part of that same draft class. That is wild. We are in a situation where, as we sit right now,
and Josh Rosen,
very real path. Sorry,
Don't
Josh.
Forget about
my fault, Josh. We all want to forget about Josh Rosen. We're in this situation where this thing's gone so far off the rails that Sam Darnold has a real shot at the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson has no idea who his head coach is going to be, and now as of this morning, neither does Josh Allen, as we find out that McDermott is out this morning. So this is absolutely wild to me. But Caroline, I think at some point we have to just acknowledge something here. For all of the chaos we saw this weekend, Seattle was not chaotic. Seattle went in and they absolutely annihilate the 49ers. They embarrassed San Francisco for the entirety of that football game. And for every single person that sat there and said, well, I'm not going to believe until I see it from Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold waited till the last minute to come out of the tunnel. And then all he did was go out and just embarrass San Francisco for the game. This was a statement by Seattle, by Darnold, by everybody.
We had 3 great games. Even in a game in which CJ Stroud threw 4 interceptions, that was still a game into the fourth quarter in that Patriots-Texans game. We had Bears-Rams go into OT. We had Broncos-Bills go into OT, dripping with, with officiating controversy. We caught up with DEAN Blandino, officials, analysts. You can go back and listen to that conversation. He answered some pretty pressing questions that we've had over the last couple of days. The one that wasn't interesting, the one that wasn't even interesting for a full minute, Fitz, was this game. Because once we got the kick return for a touchdown, it was over. Like, it was absolutely over at that point. And I want to go back to the trade deadline for a moment, because it feels like an I told you so kind of show for me. When we were talking about the NFL trade deadline, Sauce Gardner dominated a lot of our conversation. Quinnen Williams to the Dallas Cowboys dominated a lot of our conversation, and rightfully so. Anytime a team trades 2 first-round picks for a defensive back, or the Cowboys do anything, that's going to be at top of mind. But you and I both had the conversation that Rashid Shaheed might just be the most underrated acquisition at the trade deadline for the Seattle Seahawks. And look what he did. Very first play of the game, kick return to the house. And that was really all she wrote. I have a really bad habit of calling things way too early. Like, I'll say, oh, that's game, after an interception in like 4 minutes into the game. I said that after the kick return. I was like, that's game. That might be like all the Seahawks need to do with this depleted 49ers roster. And while it wasn't, it really kind of was, Fitzy. For the second time in 2 games, Mike McDonald's defense keeps Kyle Shanahan's offense out of the end zone. It was pure and utter domination in the most perfect game plan from the Seattle Seahawks. They played the exact brand of football that they need to play in order to win a Super Bowl. They can win a Super Bowl. They will win a Super Bowl if they play that exact brand of football that they played against the Niners.
I mean, to your point, Kyle Shanahan in his entire career as a head coach has only been held without a touchdown 4 times. 2 of those times were the Seattle Seahawks in the last month. So there is an absolute wizardry happening right now. Like, I don't know what it's going to take for Mike McDonald to get the appropriate respect on his name, but it ain't happening right now. And over the course of the next week, you're going to hear a lot of shows tell you about the greatness of Sean McVay. This is truly a chess match of, I think, 2 of the best young minds in the entire NFL that we're about to get in the NFC Championship game. Because certainly McVay, by the way, has double the playoff wins before the age of 40 of the next winningest coach at that age. Like, McVay has done incredible things. But he is taking on Mike McDonald, who is doing absolutely incredible things on the other side of the ball. Like, as obsessed as we are with offensive wizardry, I'm looking at a Seattle team, and I don't know if it's because McDonald just wasn't as sexy a name. I don't know if it's because Seattle's, obviously a West Coast team. Maybe people don't pay as much attention to him. But you're talking about a 2-headed monster at the running back position that just absolutely wears you down. You're talking about one of the best wide receivers in the game. You're talking about special teams coming in and doing what it needs to do. Sam Darnold playing particularly well. And a defense that's lights out. Like, there is no team left in the playoffs. There's been no team since the start of the playoffs that was built more for complimentary football and more for a Super Bowl than the Seattle Seahawks. Like, to me, this is not shocking because I think Seattle's been doing this most of the year. Now, Seattle versus the Rams is going to be an absolutely epic matchup. And I don't know right now who I'm going to pick in that game. But what I do know is that no matter how that game plays out, Seattle has proven that they belong in this conversation. Seattle has proven that they have built something special here. And I think it's time to just press pause on all of the conversation about the falling apart of Buffalo and the falling apart of the Ravens. Like, we're spending so much time focused as a general sports community on the teams that underachieved this year that we're not paying attention to a team that is consistently overachieving and consistently looks great, and that's Seattle to me.
Well, you bring up Sean McVay, and obviously we're talking about Kyle Shanahan in this matchup. That's who Mike McDonald is. Mike McDonald is Sean McVay on the defensive side of the ball. Mike McDonald is Kyle Shanahan on the defensive side of the ball. We just don't talk about him because we're so offensive obsessed as a football society. I don't think that the average sports fan could even pick Mike McDonald out of a lineup or even be able to identify him in a crowd of people, even though we could with McVay and Shanahan, because I don't think that defensive masterminds get the same kind of bravado that we give to offensive masterminds. But that's what Mike Macdonald is. We have a 2-game sample size in the last month, like you just said, against the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan, one of the most brilliant offensive geniuses in football. And Mike Macdonald didn't just beat him, but absolutely, positively, utterly dominated him in those 2 matchups. Important to point out the injuries and how depleted the 49ers roster is. I do, as much credit as we're giving to Mike Macdonald, I do think that we need to give Kyle Shanahan and this entire 49ers roster their due, this entire 49ers team, to get to the divisional round of the playoffs. When you didn't have Brock Purdy at points in this season, when you lose George Kittle in the postseason, when Christian McCaffrey got banged up in this game against the Seahawks, when you don't have Fred Warner, when you don't have Nick Bosa, when you don't have Ricky Pearsall at some points in the season, when you don't have Brandon Ayuk, did I get everything? Like, did I get everyone? I don't even think I scratched the surface with the number of injuries that have plagued this 49ers team at points this season. So I want to give San Francisco their due for even getting to this point, for even being in the Super Bowl conversation. I want to put that in a box. Seattle looks to me like the best team in football right now. They are playing the best brand of football right now, with injuries, without injuries for the 49ers. The Seahawks, I mean, they didn't ask Sam Darnold to do too much. He threw the ball 17 times. Like, that's the perfect formula for Seattle. They ran the ball incredibly well, 175 yards on the ground, 5.5 yards per carry. Awfully efficient. They held San Francisco out of the end zone. They held San Francisco to less than 300 total yards. They held San Francisco to less than 4 yards per play. It just doesn't get much more perfect, frankly, Fitz, than that.
Well, and this is where, when your defense is as good as Seattle's is, and you jump out to an early lead, you're dead, right? Like, the Seahawks up 17-0 in this game, it was never going to get back to tight, because at that point now you're taking their biggest strength and you're trying to work around it. That's just going to be impossible to do. If Seattle makes you one-dimensional, you're fried. If Seattle pops out to a big lead, you're fried. Like, that's the power of the greatness of what the Seahawks are on that side defensively. But to your point, they put up 41 points in a game where, Jackson Smith-Njigba, who right now might actually be the best wide receiver in the NFL, only had 3 catches on 4 targets. I mean, Sam Darnold, as much as, we talked about the oblique injury, he was late to come out of the tunnel. He warmed up inside instead, had social media just absolutely screaming that he was going to miss the game. And then he came out and he was efficient, but obviously limited. And they still put up 41 points. Like, when you start looking at 0 turnovers, allowed 0 touchdowns, had fewer than 10 penalty yards, scored a special teams touchdown, everything we talked about what went wrong for the Bills over the course of yesterday, all the little things that went wrong, that's not who Seattle is. Seattle doesn't make those mistakes. I don't know if that's coaching or if that's execution or that's players, but for the most part, the reason Seattle is where they are is because they don't shoot themselves in the foot. They play really clean, efficient football. They stay ahead of it. Again, they're going to get their kryptonite. They get the Rams, and they have played really poorly at times in both games against the Rams. That's why I think this is the most interesting. If you're a Seahawks fan, you wanted the Bears to win somehow, some way. You didn't want to see the Rams again. But for the rest of us, Caroline, we get the rematch here that we all want, because if there's any one team this year that has had the Seahawks sort of swimming in weird waters, it's been the Rams.
I think this is an opportunity for Sam Darnold redemption. I didn't forget those 4 picks that he threw against the Rams in the regular season. And Sam Darnold has a big kind of scarlet letter kind of reputation that he would like to shake off of. You can't rely on him in the biggest games in the postseason. Sam Darnold has an interception problem in the biggest games. If Sam Darnold is able to, and he doesn't have to do too much, didn't have to do too much against San Francisco. So if Sam Darnold has another, 15 for 18 for 180 yards and 1 touchdown kind of game, that's fine, because that means that everybody else did their job to take down the Los Angeles Rams. Now, it's when they get to really scary territory. If the Rams shut down the run, if Seattle gets off into an early deficit, if the Rams get off to an early lead, then you're going to have to ask Sam Darnold to do more, and you're entering very dangerous territory. But I think Sam Darnold is going to be motivated by that. You don't think Cooper Kupp's going to be a little extra motivated to take on his former team? Of course he wasn't. That was a huge topic of discussion in their 2 matchups in the regular season. But in the postseason, in the NFC Championship Game, a trip to the Super Bowl on the line, ooh, I think Cooper Kupp's going to be ready for this one.
Plenty more to come on this matchup throughout the week. And, of course, plenty more to come today on the breaking news. Sean McDermott out as the Buffalo Bills head coach. We'll keep you updated on all of that. But coming up next, the biggest star in all of college basketball going to join us next. A.J. Dybantsa. We'll get his thoughts on what life's actually like when you're a superstar and in school.
And I didn't have any gym equipment. I didn't live near a gym. So I would watch TV, and every commercial break, I'd jump on the floor and bust out some leg lifts from Jane Fonda, or I'd jump on the floor and bust out some push-ups from Herschel Walker. And my dad just saw me doing this for months. And he was like, yo, if you really are that committed, I'll work out with you. And that's really what got me going and doing anything that was athletic, was my dad.
And nobody realized we're fighting for world titles, jerking curtains for a guy from Australia and a dude from the Caucasus region. I would never open a show for a dude from Australia, just so you understand.
Why not?
Ever.
Why not? Why not?
That's not a combat-driven country. That's not real. You can't get a scholarship and go to a college for any combat form in Australia. It's not real.
I wanted to make this into what does it look like moving forward now with Travis Hunter, because the light went on, I think.
The two-way things, like, it's not off the table yet. The sky's not falling. Now the scoreboard reads one season-ending injury. I think if there's another season-ending injury next year, it's done. Maybe the silver lining is, well, he rehabs this knee and goes through this process, his body finally gets a rest.
What do you think could be the next NBA trend?
But I think you're going to see a lot more full court pressure from many teams in the league. So I'm interested to see that. Obviously, every year, everybody talks about wanting to play faster, and sustaining that through 7 games, I think, is easier than being able to sustain it for 82. You're going to see a lot more backcourt pressure in our league this upcoming year. And I like to think that us as a group and the success we had last season will have a lot to do with that.
Go Cougs tweets out Red Bull and AJ Dybantsa. My daughter thought my Red Bull can needed something extra. I think AJ may be in for that. He's a massive superstar in college basketball right now and a Red Bull athlete. Grateful to have the phenom himself, AJ Dybantsa, joining us. Absolutely having a massive year. 5th in the nation in scoring, 22.5 points per game. All right, AJ, how's your adjustment been to college basketball so far this year?
Obviously way more physical. A lot of guys faster, a lot of guys older, but it's been good. I've been having a great support staff, and my teammates are a little bit older, so I'm trying to get me used to that. And then my coaches have made a good job of making strides to make it easier.
And AJ, you're coming off of just your second loss of the season. BYU is 16-2 on the year. Texas Tech held you to your lowest point total this entire season, just 13 points. Walk me through what they were able to do defensively to kind of hold you in check, and what do you do in your own process to bounce back and kind of get out of whatever Texas Tech was able to do for you?
Yeah, they just made it tough in certain ways. Shots I didn't really want to take. They were very makeable shots, though. I think I just missed a lot of shots that I usually make. And I just bounced back by just keep doing what I've been doing, just keep staying in the gym and, hanging shots.
I mean, you get a chance quickly to get back in the gym. You got a home games versus Utah in a couple of days. The rivalry is a big one for them. So, how are you guys getting pumped up for this rivalry matchup?
I mean, you don't really have to get motivated for the Utah matchup, I don't think. Now, I didn't grow up like a Utah hater. I wasn't like a BYU fan growing up, but as soon as I got here, they made it known that they didn't really like Utah here. So when we played them at their place, it got loud quick.
Yeah, what would you say makes that Utah BYU rivalry so special?
I don't know the backstory to it, but I know that I'm playing for BYU, and I'm not really supposed to wear red, and I'm not really supposed to like red. So anytime we play them, it's going to be a good one.
Man, you're obviously from Massachusetts, which is funny because I'm sitting here in Connecticut. And when you guys played UConn up in Boston, that was a matchup everybody was trying to get into. What was it like for you being from that area to go back and get to play in front of so many people that you grew up around?
Yeah, it was a blessing just being – a lot of people haven't seen me play in years. Obviously, me traveling for all of my high school career and then going on to college at BYU. So it was just great to, see some familiar faces, and then obviously play on the NBA court that you grew up watching your favorite players play on.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a buddy that was at that game, said that your middle school was in one of the suites. Did you talk to people from your old schools and just sort of give them a little inspiration?
Well, I couldn't talk to nobody in the suites 'cause I think security was pretty strict, but I did see a lot of people that had the people had wristbands after the game. I seen a lot of people.
You mentioned getting to play at TD Garden, getting to play where you grew up. Do you get a chance in the season to keep up with what the Celtics are doing?
Yeah, they're actually doing well right now. I mean, the Celtics are my favorite team. Me growing up in Boston, I like all Boston teams: Celtics, Red Sox, Bruins, Patriots. The Patriots just won yesterday, so we're on a roll right now.
I mean, were you celebrating that Patriots win yesterday?
Now, I wasn't celebrating it crazy. I think we have to. I don't really celebrate until it's like the Super Bowl, until it's like the NBA Finals.
Got to keep the main thing the main thing. I
Exactly.
get it. Yeah, totally understand. At least you've gotten to experience plenty of Super Bowls in your lifetime.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly believe Boston sports fans
What's
are the
that like?
luckiest sports fans in America, truly. But let's look back to you. And I know that you're looking ahead to the next game on the calendar, and I totally understand that. But you've got a matchup with Kansas coming up in a couple of weeks. Darren Peterson is another one of the most exciting young players in college basketball, along with yourself. What do you know about him and this Kansas team?
I mean, I've been playing against or with DP since USA U16, so that was like a long time ago. And then we been playing each other EYBL circuit, but he ended up going to Adidas. But we played each other in camps and everything. But he's a great player, hell of a shot maker. And the Kansas team is actually rolling right now, so it should be a good one. And it's at Kansas. They say Kansas is one of the hardest environments to play in.
It's one of the interesting things about the modern NBA, right, AJ? Like, they talk a lot about the fact that you guys start playing against each other or with each other at such a young age. How do those relationships, as you watch each other grow, how are you guys supporting each other in trying to get to that final step of getting to the league?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the main goal for all of us. If you want to go down the line, not just me and Darren. But it's fun. I mean, obviously, you're playing against one person. You see how they grow. You see how they develop. You end up seeing what milestones they get, like where they commit and stuff like that. It's just fun.
Is there somebody you've played against that you've looked at and you've been like, oh my God, that guy, he suddenly lights out? Like, you played against these guys for a long time. Is there somebody that's really impressed you?
I mean, a lot of them. I mean, a lot of these guys weren't always good. Like a lot of people are late bloomers. Some people have been good from a very young age. So I mean, you just get to see the different type of talent levels.
Do you keep up with one another, even now that you're in college?
I mean, some of us talk. I mean, me and DP particularly, we don't talk every day. We're not best friends, but it's a cool relationship. Like, it's not nothing like we don't hate each other.
Yeah.
What's the college experience? Like, Caroline and I were talking about you last night when we were getting ready knowing you were coming on the show. And just thinking about the fact that you have this platform and you have all these eyeballs, and part of you's got to be thinking just a little bit about what the NBA is going to look like in a year while you're also trying to go to college. Like, how do you actually get the college experience if you're AJ Dybantsa?
I mean, I go to school. I have in-person classes with my teammates. So it's not that hard for me. I know some schools probably have guys do online classes, but I mean, I kind of told them I wanted the experience. So I'm in person. I see all the people in class. I sit in the front of class, and I try to engage them as I can.
And you can try and be as, quote unquote, normal of a college student as you possibly can, but you are, have a large spotlight on you. You have a lot of people watching, what you do on the court, what you might do off the court. How do you manage the spotlight and the expectations that AJ Dybantsa has?
I'll just keep doing me. I'll just keep being myself. I think I've been doing a great job. I think I've been doing a great job at just managing everything. I'm just trying to keep the main thing, but also going to school because, education is very important. And speaking of education, that's also why I have a foundation that called the AJ Dybantsa Foundation. It helps kids from Jamaica and the Congo go to schools. I actually think that school is very important. Education is very important. So, I mean, those are the two things, just basketball and books.
Why was that something that you were passionate about?
I mean, obviously my mom's from Jamaica. My dad's from Congo. Obviously, they're less fortunate than whatever the U.S. has going on. Obviously, we're just way more fortunate. But after Jamaica went through Hurricane Melissa, and then the Congo hasn't always been the best, I just kind of want to help out in any sort of way.
Who are you leaning on the most in this process as you try and figure out how to grow your game? Like, who's out there giving you the best advice?
I mean, right now I'm just listening to my player development coaches and my coaching staff. I mean, half of them have been in the NBA. That's kind of why I chose BYU. But I'm always watching film. Always watching film.
We are, about a month and a half and some change, maybe removed from March Madness. What have you heard about, just the NCAA tournament experience? What are you most looking forward to in getting that opportunity?
Oh, it should be fun. It should be so loud. I heard it's loud. I mean, I've been to the Final Four for women's and men's last year. One was in, I think, San Antonio, and I forgot what the women's were in Florida, I think, but it's a crazy environment. Like, I just want to be able to play it. Like, that's kind of like why I went to college basketball. Some people ask me like why I didn't go overseas and stuff like that. Like, nah, I want to play in March Madness. That's one of like the funnest environments ever.
All right, so you told us you're a Celtics fan. We all know you're a Celtics fan. I'm going to give you a crazy would you rather, AJ. You got a choice. Like the basketball gods shine on you, and the day before the draft, the basketball gods come to AJ Dybantsa and they say, all right, you can either be the first pick in the draft, wherever that's going to be, or I'll guarantee you get picked by the Celtics. But you won't be the first pick in the draft. What would you pick?
Well, it's really not my choice, but my ultimate goal since I was a kid was to be drafted number 1. So that was my ultimate goal. Whoever team picks me, I'll be blessed. But my ultimate goal was to go number 1.
Do you watch any of the teams right now that are sort of competing in that lottery world and think, oh, like, is there a spot you'd love to go?
No, nowhere specific. I mean, I'm watching all basketball. I'm not just watching the teams that are quote unquote tanking. I'm watching all basketball. Anything's really a possibility. We've kind of seen the NBA lottery not go to the worst team, but who knows? That's why I kind of said right now I'm just focusing on my season because you never know what happens in the lottery.
And if there's not a specific landing spot that you would want to go to, is there a specific player or group of players that you would love to potentially play with in the NBA?
Nah, same. Like since it's really not my choice, so I just kind of just be blessed with the situation I get put in. Like I don't really have like specifics that I want to play with A, B, or C.
What about the opposite? Is there somebody that you look at and you say, man, I can't wait to go one-on-one against this guy in the NBA?
Now that I can answer because it's way more likely. Just like all like the superstar vets that I've been seeing going to their camps. KD is my favorite player, so I can't wait to share the court with him. LeBron, Steph Curry. I went to Curry camp. Just all these guys that you just watch and admire growing up, and you can finally share a court with them. That'd be crazy.
I mean, legends of the game. I saw you got the opportunity to meet LeBron when you were courtside at the Jazz game. He's dapping you up, real recognized, real moment there. If those are guys that you would want to go one-on-one against, is there a certain player or maybe a mixture of certain players that you kind of model your game after?
Yeah, like the most accurate one I've seen so far, I think, was Tracy McGrady. Just kind of like the raw talent, shot-making ability, tall. But I watched a lot of Shea. Oh, there you go. I watched a lot of Shea and Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George has been one of my favorite players since I started playing.
When you watch guys like that, what do you take from them? What's something that you looked at like from SGA and said, I want to figure out how to do more of that?
I just love the way he creates space in the mid-range. I think actually, like, I'm a big mid-range guy. Not a lot of guys take mid-range and can make mid-ranges, but since he takes and makes a lot of them, I try to, like, incorporate how he creates so much space in there to get a shot off.
And you mentioned LeBron being a guy that is, obviously legend of the game. You're 18. LeBron is 23 years older than you. What would it mean to you if you got the opportunity not just to go one-on-one with him, but to continue to watch LeBron in this legendary career he's had so far?
I mean, it's crazy. Like, I actually don't understand how he's doing it. Like, kudos to him and his discipline and his hard work. It sounds so crazy. Like they said, it was a stat that he's been in the league more years than he hasn't been in the league. That's just so crazy to me. It's just so crazy to me. I have nothing to say about that.
Are you hoping he sticks around for at least another year so that you guys can be in the same league at the same time?
Well, it's not necessarily another year that I'll be in the league, but however long it takes for him, however long it takes for me to get there, I hope that he's there for at least 1 year.
That is a well-fashioned answer by you.
And you mentioned, whatever your future might hold, if you do decide to declare for the NBA draft next year, what is that like coming into college, knowing that you might only be there for 1 year? How do you, kind of integrate yourself in a place that's so different and so far from home, from where you grew up in Massachusetts, knowing that you might be there for only 1 year?
I mean, I've been traveling and changing schools since my sophomore year now of high school. I went to 3 different high schools. And then I went to college here. So I'm kind of used to the traveling thing. I'm kind of used to not staying in one place. But you definitely do want to build a home, and especially in a community that loves you and that you love. It'll be hard to say goodbye if that is the case, but moving on for the better. I don't think they'll hate it.
All right. I've watched enough of your interviews, AJ, to know that you really just focus on school and basketball. I get that. All right. But you're a Red Bull athlete. So what gives you wings? What's the thing that gets you amped up and excited?
That's tough. I love concerts. I love concerts.
You can't wait to see this year?
I actually just seen one of my favorite artists, but there's 4 more people I have to go see, then life will be complete.
Who are the 4?
Who'd you go see?
Well, I seen NBA YoungBoy, and I went to see Drake 2 years ago.
Nice.
But I think if I go see Gunna at a concert, I hope y'all know who these people are. But if I go see Gunna,
AJ, we're not that old. We promise you.
Yep, you'll be surprised. I've talked to some of my teammates' parents. They have no idea who we're talking about. But I think if I go see Gunna, I go see a rapper named V's. I think I have to see YoungBoy again, and I think I have to see. There's one more, but then life will be complete after that.
Those are solid.
And
for
AJ,
sure.
Number 1, Red Bull athlete, of course. Number 2, one of the biggest stars in all the land, man. It's really fun to watch you play. Thanks for all the joy you give us by the way you play the game. Thanks for hanging out with us. Best of luck throughout the course of this season. Can't wait to see however your future unfolds. We can't wait to watch it happen, AJ. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
That's
AJ.
Dybantsa, Red Bull athlete. And, I think he just called both of us sneaky old, which I'll take. I kind of fit that category. All right, coming up next, now that we know the championship games, the question is, what's the best Super Bowl matchup? We'll tell you next.
Alex Golesh to Auburn. I got no clue if he's going to win there. I am irrationally excited, though, about Alex Golesh at Auburn. I know what works at Auburn. I grew up around Auburn. We've seen a whole lot of what doesn't work at Auburn, haven't we, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, we have. You don't even have to be an Auburn fan to shake your head. The difference is Auburn people are shaking their heads frowning, whereas LSU and Bama and Georgia folks are shaking their heads laughing.
I have a tweet that I want to read to you.
Yes.
Game 5 of last year, we lost to the Knicks. I didn't play very well. This was in New York. We came back, won Game 6, won Game 7. You tweeted, Tyrese Halliburton dilly-dallies around the perimeter too much on offense. Too much of a cone on defense. He needs to take this offseason to figure out who he wants to be.
That's too hard. Sometimes I get emotional.
If I change your mind, cool. That's part of being an athlete. I'm all game with it.
There was a guy named Tony Khan, the head of AEW. In a million years, I never would have thought this guy would come on. He hated me.
Wait, why? Because you guys had beef?
We had beef. Big beef, yes.
Who do you not have beef with, Eric?
Not that many people, but the point is when it's beef, it gets magnified, okay? It gets magnified. But Tony came in, we shook hands, we made amends, we hugged, and all was good. That's what grown-ups do.
This new young generation coming into the NBA, like, what is the why for them wanting to do all these things off the court?
And I mean, for me, it's always been like, what is authentic to me? You're making the money you're making from the NBA, and God bless us, we're blessed. So now you got guys saving and doing right by their money that they make from the league. So when you get off the floor, it's like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and just do what I want to do. May not be the big ticket financially that I want, but it's authentic to who I am and what I want to do.
And then there were 4. We only have 4 remaining teams in the NFL playoff bracket. You see it right there. Pum, pum, pum. The AFC Championship game is going to give us the Broncos versus the Patriots. Reminder, 15th consecutive year that we will have either the Patriots or the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. So, and then on the NFC side, you have the Seahawks and the Rams part 3. So we get the rematch to the rematch of that matchup. So 2 huge matchups as we go into next weekend. And look, the question is, what's the sexiest Super Bowl matchup? What's the one, Caroline, if you could pick one that you're like, I want this one, what would that matchup be in this situation?
I think it's Seahawks Patriots because I am here for the story of the Seahawks. And look, I know that everyone is jealous of, painfully jealous, myself included, of Boston sports fans and Patriots fans, that they lived through the greatest modern dynasty of football and they were bad for like 4 seconds. And then now they're back in the AFC Championship game, 53 weeks removed from Mike Vrabel getting hired as their head coach. But I don't want to see Jarrett Stidham in the Super Bowl. No disrespect to Jarrett Stidham. That's not going to be the best brand of the suit. It's nothing against him personally. It's the idea that we're going to have a backup quarterback starting in the Super Bowl, a backup quarterback that hasn't attempted a pass since Biden was president. And so not necessarily the biggest hype there. But I love that story for Sam Darnold. I would love it if Sam Darnold was able to punch his ticket to the Super Bowl. So I want the Patriots just because I don't want Jarrett Stidham. I love the Seahawks story. Rams Patriots is probably, more of a clash of the Titans just in terms of brands, but I can't get the stench of what was the 2018 season Super Bowl. Remember probably the most boring Super Bowl in the history of the planet? Jared Goff quarterbacking for the Rams, Tom Brady and the Patriots. What was the final score? Like 13-10, 10-7, something gross like that. I can't get the stench of that game out of my nose and the bad taste out of my mouth, even though these are 2 totally and completely different teams. So I am rooting for Seahawks Patriots. And if we get Rams Patriots, then so be it.
See, here's the thing. I want to paint a picture for you, Caroline. I want to take you all the way back to a Super Bowl in New York, the only Super Bowl that ever took place in New York, where a much younger version of me, the band had played the pregame show for Fox, and then we walked into the stadium. I had seats 8 rows off the field, and I watched in that Super Bowl the Seahawks take on the Broncos, and I had these Seahawks fans sitting in front of me and these Broncos fans sitting behind me, right? And I just watched an absolute annihilation in that Super Bowl. The Seahawks win the Super Bowl, the Broncos get annihilated. It was tremendous, though. It was a game I'll never forget. Bruno Mars, the halftime show. Oh, man, this was electric. It was the one with Red Hot Chili Peppers. Oh, it was an electric night. Give me part 2 of that. And by the way, I think the outcome would be very similar here. I just think we could be looking at an absolute slaughter. I just think what we're looking at is the Seahawks slaughtering the Broncos in the Super Bowl. But I want this sort of a rematch because I like it when we can watch old Super Bowls, when they can show us the rematch of old Super Bowls. There are several different versions that will give us a rematch, but anytime the last time you saw it, it was a wild blowout, then I just think that makes it even more interesting for everybody going into it. So give me the Broncos and the unprecedented, oh my God, Jarrett Stidham. And then Jarrett Stidham taking on that defense for the Seahawks. To think it'd be a blowout, be over at halftime. But I want it. What's a matchup, though?
Boring. I don't want that.
Okay. Is that your sweet baby Jesus? I don't want that matchup because I've got one like you. I don't want Rams Broncos. I don't want Rams Broncos because the Rams Broncos thing just feels to me like there's no great historic moment that I'm leaning on. Is like, oh, there's no.
Is that East Coast bias that's showing, Fitz?
No. Oh, do I have East? No, because I picked the Seahawks.
I think you might.
Look,
you might.
It doesn't matter. As long as the Broncos, look, we're just going to be really honest here, Caroline. I have a Raiders helmet sitting behind me. I still remember the Tuck rule, and I hate the Broncos. So I have no love for either of these teams. As long as I watch one of them lose the AFC Championship game and the other of them lose the Super Bowl, I'll be very happy.
And totally valid. If you are rooting for your own personal gratification, I am right there with you. Which is why please, sweet baby Jesus, I don't need Denver in the Super Bowl unless Bo Nix makes a miraculous recovery and Bo Nix is like Bobby Boucher in the second half of the Bourbon Bowl and he comes back even with a broken ankle. Like, sign me up for that. I am here for that. I know that the Jarrett Stidham of it all has a very Nick Foles and the Eagles feel to it, a very Cinderella feel to it. Like, I do think that Jarrett Stidham can win the Broncos a game. I think the Broncos can do enough defensively and running the football to beat the Patriots and get to the Super Bowl. But do we really think in our heart of hearts, and shout out to Nick Foles here for calling out the Patriots as they struggle against backup quarterbacks in championship type games. Nick Foles would know that better than anybody. I can't believe that the best version of a Super Bowl that we are going to get involves Jarrett Stidham. So I don't need anything Denver. I don't want anything Denver. As great as the Sean Payton side of it all would be, if he became the first coach ever to win a Super Bowl with two different organizations going back to his time with the Saints, incredible. Would love that for Sean Payton. But for my viewing pleasure, no Denver.
Yeah, I mean, look, the one thing that none of us needed the Patriots to win a Super Bowl. I need to avoid the Patriots winning a Super Bowl. Like, Patriots fans, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I truly am. I live in New England, and alarmingly, even at the beginning of this year, I was sitting there at the beginning of this year, week 1, and I was sitting with a bunch of Patriots fans as I watched the Raiders take on the Patriots. And one Patriots fan, I know that's a diehard Patriots fan, looked at me and said, "Oh, Carroll's the coach of the Raiders now?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "I don't really pay attention because we suck, so I don't really watch until we're any good." I'm just saying, you could go into every sports bar in New England for the last year and a half, and there's nobody in there watching the Patriots. You go into a sports bar yesterday, everybody's in on it. They just haven't suffered enough. It is too soon for the Patriots to have another dynasty.
I would say my best dating advice would be to not date a Patriots fan. Because you want to find yourself a good old Jets fan. You want to find yourself a Browns fan. You want to find yourself a Raiders fan, Fitzy. That's loyalty. Those are people who have weathered the storm. Those are people who have learned to love even when it's difficult or ugly. Not Patriots fans. Patriots fans might be the luckiest fan base on planet Earth. I mean, you not only get to experience one of the greatest runs that we've seen in the history of this league. You not only had the greatest quarterback in the history of this league and Tom Brady being your quarterback for, the better part of 2 decades. You not only got to witness 6 Super Bowls, but also in a draft where you're drafting 3rd, you draft probably the best quarterback, what looks like to be the best quarterback in this class. I love Jaden Daniels. Love the pop of Caleb Williams. Bo Nix got his team to the AFC Championship game. That's one of the best draft classes since we can discuss. But it looks like Drake May might be the jewel of that class so far. And you picked 3rd. This year, you have the wonderful fortune of having an easy and a lighter schedule. And you get to the AFC Championship game with year 1 of Mike Vrabel, who won Super Bowls in New England nonetheless. And oh yeah, by the way, you play a backup quarterback in the AFC Championship game. How does this fan base just continue to reap the benefits of Lady Luck?
And look, Patriots fans, this is where I will tell you, before you angrily comment in the YouTube chat or before you angrily tweet us about all of this disrespect for the Patriots, just remember, they don't put an asterisk when you raise a banner that says, "But it was a really lucky year." They don't put an asterisk that says, "Oh, but they played a soft strength of schedule." Everything Caroline just said is absolutely right. And if I'm a Patriots fan today, I don't care. It doesn't matter what anybody says about how lucky you had to get as a franchise. You're sitting in the AFC Championship game. So, it
doesn't take anything away. It just is what it is.
100%. It is 1,000%. I will say this until I'm blue in the face. I say 2 things can be true a lot on this show and in everything that I do in my life. 2 things can be true at once. CJ Stroud melted down, and the Patriots defense was very good. All of these things can happen at the same time. All right, we've got plenty more to come on this, obviously, but we need to get into the national championship. Dan Wolken going to join us next. We'll figure out what to make of tonight's mega matchup coming up next on Yahoo Sports Daily.
Perhaps you would be expecting me to say, nice to meet you, but we've actually met once before, Vince. Getting to be backstage at a wrestling event. Kurt Angle took a liking to me for some reason, and he introduced me to you. We were sitting outside having lunch, and he said, hey, this is Ariel. The only thing I remember you saying was, what are you, some kind of smart mark? What are you, some kind of internet fan? And then that was it. I was like, holy, and I remember calling my friend like, I think Vince Russo just insulted me. This is incredible.
People got on me when I talked about Ohtani, and I saw him play one inning of one baseball game when I was still playing, and I looked at Luis Severino. I said, this is the best baseball player I've ever seen in my life. He's the biggest, he's the fastest, he's the strongest, he hits the ball the furthest, he throws the ball the hardest. Like, he is really, incredible. I mean, he really shows up in these big moments, and it's just incredible to be able to watch him do his thing, man.
Every Sunday I'll have the thought, how on earth could a Titans fire Mike Vrabel? Mike Vrabel is one of the best coaches in the NFL and always has been. He's always gotten the most out of his talent. The New England Patriots making it back to the Super Bowl, just 6 years after Tom Brady leaves, when everybody was just dunking on the Patriots and, oh my goodness, Patriots are dead. And them making it back to the Super Bowl would be alternately cool and pretty fun to see everybody lose their minds over.
I always think somewhere somebody's watching their first college football game in person or on TV, and any given game could be that game. This was someone's first college football game yesterday. This person is set up for crushing disappointment the rest of the way, because eventually they're going to watch Rutgers. Northwestern games are going to happen to you. So just prepare. It's okay. You got to let the bad with the good in. That's all.
Cignetti said he's noticed some of his seniors have been sentimental coming up to this last game. Think it's time to sharpen the saw now. Throw those warm fuzzies out the door. You don't go to war with warm milk and cookies. Dan Wolken tweeted that out. Yahoo Sports senior writer joins us. And now, are we sure, Dan? I don't know what the rules are for going to war with warm milk and cookies, but what do you make of Cignetti's quote?
Well, I don't know. Those chocolate chips can be dangerous, right? You eat too many of them, maybe that's how you win the game. Overfeed your opposition. No, listen, Indiana, I think they have been getting gassed up the last week and a half. And I think Curt Cignetti is a little bit concerned that, after two great performances and everybody thinking that they're a big favorite in this game, that maybe there's a little bit of a letdown. The guy thinks of everything. He guards against complacency. That's what he learned from the Nick Saban school of coaching college football. And we'll see. Yesterday, I'm sure they got an absolute butt kicking at practice from Curt Cignetti, and we'll see if that translates to a big performance tonight.
There is so much about Curt Cignetti that is so incredibly Saban-esque. But when Saban retired, the conversation became, okay, now who is the best coach in college football? I think we could talk about Ryan Day at Ohio State. We could talk about Kirby Smart at Georgia. If Indiana wins the national championship tonight, will Curt Cignetti be viewed as the best coach in college football?
Well, he's definitely going to be in line to be one of the highest paid coaches in college football, because there is a clause in his contract, the one he just agreed to a couple months ago, that he's got to be in the top 3 of coaching salaries in the country if he meets certain standards, which they've already met. So Curt Cignetti is going to get a big pay bump regardless of what happens here. As far as whether we consider him the best coach in college football, Smart still got 2 national championships. So does Dabo Swinney, although Clemson's been in the gutter the last few years. Listen, I think that the job he's done over 2 seasons to get Indiana to this point, no question, it's the best turnaround in college football history. Is he the best coach in college football? Let's see a little longer sample size. Even if they win the Natty tonight, they're going to come back next year and there's going to be big expectations. We'll see how they manage it.
Think back to where we were a year ago in Indiana when people were sort of saying, it was cute, but let's see it sustained. Now they're even better this year. Is this the beginning of a moment that you think can last for several years for Indiana?
They've got the investment. Mark Cuban, notably, and some other big billionaires who are Indiana alums have gone all the way in terms of their investment in their belief in Curt Cignetti, and they've given a lot of money. They've gotten great players out of the transfer portal. Josh Hoover is going to be their quarterback next year, a transfer from TCU. They paid a lot of money to get him and some other guys. So, look, I think they're going to keep it rolling in the sense that they'll be a contender, especially in the Big Ten. But is everything going to come together the way it has this year with the experience and the chemistry and the right quarterback? And that's hard. You know, the stars have to align, and they certainly did this year for Indiana. But whether you can do it year after year, I think college football right now, there's so much parity. It's hard to be at that great highest level every single year.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to question if a dynasty, or at least a Saban-esque dynastic run, is even possible in today's college football.
Yeah, I don't think so. Look, the rules now, and everybody's got this revenue share cap that they're ignoring, and nobody knows, you know, if there's limits to how much you can spend on a roster. So everyone's kind of freewheeling it, but the talent is getting spread around for sure. And I just don't think that you can stockpile the depth. When Nick Saban was at his peak, they had 5 stars upon 5 stars upon 5 stars in recruiting classes, guys who were buried on the depth chart, playing on the scout team in the program 2-3 years before they ever got a chance to play. That's not happening now because of the portal. Guys want to play. They go somewhere for a year. They don't get the experience they wanted. They leave and go somewhere else. So I just don't think you can compile the depth to have a dynastic run like that. That's why you got to maximize. And I think that's one thing you can say about Curt Cignetti is he is a maximizer. They're going to have ebbs and flows, ups and downs. Who knows how long he even wants to coach? You know, he's in his mid-60s at this point. But for the next 5 years, I think you look at Indiana and say, yeah, if they win tonight, they're not going anywhere. But can you really expect them to win another championship? One team wins the title every year. It's hard to do.
All right, Dan, you are in Miami. I've heard a lot about the expected home field advantage, but I'm struggling, the math nerd that I am, when tickets were allocated to Miami and tickets were allocated to Indiana and tickets were allocated to sponsors. So this is not your normal game. Do you expect there to be a large home field advantage for Miami tonight?
No, I actually think there may be more Indiana fans in the crowd. You look at the ticket prices, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 just to sort of get in the door. And Indiana fans have traveled throughout this whole playoff. They took over the Rose Bowl. They took over Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta last week. And I don't know that they'll take over this venue tonight, but I think they will be very much in big numbers because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Indiana fans, by the way, and as I'll tell you, they have the largest living alumni fan base in the country. So there's a lot of Indiana folks out there. They've been itching for an opportunity like this, and I don't think they're going to spare any expense to get in the door. I know there's going to be a lot of Miami people there as well. I think there's a lot of Miami fans who are actually flying into town just to experience this game in Miami, even if they can't get in the stadium. I've heard a lot about that. So, you know, but when you allocate the tickets the way they have, like you said, 20,000 for each school, 25,000 in the middle, a lot of it corporate designated. You know, it's all about that secondary market, and I think Indiana right now is hard to beat there.
Yeah, you're going to need some corporate assistance for some of the ticket prices that I've seen. I mean, $4, $5, $6, $7, $10,000 just to get into the stadium. It is outrageous. But Dan, I feel like so much of our conversation about the national championship game is dominated by Indiana storylines. And look, it's nothing short of miraculous, the turnaround that Curt Cignetti has done there. But let's acknowledge that there's another side of this game as well, too, in Miami. What does Miami have to do to defend home turf and win a national championship?
Yeah, well, I think if you talk to Miami and get their take on this game, what they would tell you is that they play a similar style to Indiana. Those two teams kind of want to do the same thing, which is dominate the line of scrimmage, run the ball, be opportunistic in the passing game, play action, limit turnovers, time of possession, all that sort of fundamental stuff. And they feel like they have more talent. They feel like they have better players in the trenches, player for player, recruit for recruit. Miami's got more than Indiana. That's the way they think of this. Now, listen, the issue for Miami in a lot of these games has been penalties, turnovers. They're not the most buttoned up operation. They are mistake prone at times. And they're going to have to play a very clean game. If they do that, I think they will be right there and they may even win. But the question is, can they? Can they be mistake-free or as close to it as possible on a big stage? They certainly were not against Ole Miss. You know, they let Ole Miss hang around and almost win that game because of their mistakes. But if you go earlier in the playoff against Ohio State, they were really, really good. And I think for the 3, 4, 5 weeks before that, I thought they played pretty clean. So which Miami team are we going to get tonight? You know, that's going to determine it. But their point of view, and they're not wrong, player for player, they have more talent.
All right, so if we live in this world where Miami has a shot at winning the national championship, like tomorrow morning, Miami might be national champions, which means they would have won a national championship before they ever won the ACC. Can we now finally acknowledge that conference titles just don't matter?
Oh, I think we've always known that, at least in the recent era of the college football playoff, because you've had this crazy expansion of conferences. And what we've seen since the Big Ten went to 18 teams and the ACC's got, you know, what they've got, 17 teams, you cannot have a true conference champion because the tiebreakers are all weird and wacky. The schedules are extremely different. You don't have the best teams always playing the best teams. There are teams like Texas A&M and the SEC this year that sort of played a really weak schedule. They got all the bottom feeders, and that sort of let them rise to the top. And so, yeah, like conference championships, it's nice to win, and certainly it gives you an automatic entry into the playoff for most of these leagues, but it just doesn't really mean what it used to mean. And Miami got caught in a bad tiebreaker situation in the ACC, and they weren't allowed to play in that game, but they were clearly the best team, and we all knew in real time they were the best team in the ACC. So, you know, they need to fix the tiebreakers for sure, but the bottom line is the problem is the conferences are just too darn big.
I have been accused of being an SEC homer, so allow me to play into that and bring the SEC into all of this. This is now the third year in a row where an SEC team is not represented in the national championship. I mean, the Big Ten has an opportunity to win 3 consecutive national championships going back to Ohio State last year and Michigan the year before. Is the SEC as we know it dead?
No. I mean, look, the SEC is going to be fine, and they've got a lot of good programs, and they're all doing what they can competitively. But it does speak to right now, the Big Ten does have programs at the top of their league who are doing a great job financially with the transfer portal, getting the guys they need to get. Now, that doesn't mean the SEC isn't spending money. I mean, look at what LSU is doing right now in the portal under Lane Kiffin. They're going to have one of the highest priced rosters in the country next year, and the SEC will come back around and I'm sure win a bunch of national championships. But these things are somewhat cyclical. Some of the legacy SEC programs have seen their advantages disappear or at least dissipate in this new era of NIL and transfer portal. Like I said before, they can't stack the talent like they used to. And the Big Ten teams have a great chance in recruiting to go national because a lot of them, all of them really, have huge financial wherewithal. So again, it's just about the talent spreading around. The big thing I think in the SEC that concerns me is the coaching, because especially you look this year with a lot of the new hires that were made across the SEC, a lot of group of 5 and sort of inexperienced coaches that are gambles. You know, Alex Golesh at Auburn, it's a gamble. Florida with John Summerall, it's a bit of a gamble. How are they going to translate to that level? You know, Ryan Silverfield at Arkansas, same thing. So I think you look at the coaching at the top of the Big Ten, there is an advantage there, and I think that plays out at least on the margins.
So you're speaking to a recalibrated SEC and an understanding that modern college football is just going to be this way. Do you think that SEC schools, fans, administrators will catch up to that logic, or do we still see rash reactionary firings constantly for a lack of national championships when that might not be a realistic expectation?
Well, 3 years in a row to not have a team in the national championship game is definitely a wake-up call, I think, for a lot of people in the SEC. But I don't think fundamentally you can look at it and say, oh, they're screwing this up or they're doing a bad job or they don't understand this era. I don't think that's really true. I think some of it is just circumstantial. You're dealing with some bad hires from the last 5 years that are sort of getting cycled through and cleaned out. And, again, like the margins are not that big. Georgia was not that far away from beating Ole Miss and maybe beating Miami. Like, in a different world, Georgia could have won this whole thing, but it's a playoff. You got to win 4 rounds, and the margins are small, and you're going to be in close games, and it's just not always going to go your way. And I think that's the statement here. This is not the BCS where you pick 2 teams, play the national championship, and because of the SEC's reputation, a lot of times they get the benefit of the doubt. Now you have to go play it. 5 SEC teams made the playoff. It just so happened that at the top end, they were marginally not as good as the Big Ten teams.
All right, Dan, before we get you out of here, you are in Miami. You will be at the national championship game tonight. Who is your pick to ultimately hoist the CFP trophy?
Yeah, I've sort of been in the Indiana camp really kind of ever since the Rose Bowl. Maybe I'm being prisoner of the moment. Maybe I'm not giving enough credence to the fact that they're going to come down to earth at some point, and maybe it's tonight and they don't play their best game. That's certainly all possible. So I don't discount Miami as having a great chance to win. I just think if Indiana carries what they've had from the Rose Bowl to the Peach Bowl to this game, they're going to be hard to stop. They don't make a lot of mistakes, typically. And if they have that kind of night, I think they are going to win this game and stamp a national title that is really going to stand out in history just for how unexpected it was 2 years ago.
It's absolutely going to be wild. Dan, be safe in Miami. Enjoy the chaos of it all. Enjoy the game. Be sure to let me know how great you think Fernando Mendoza is. We appreciate your time as always, Dan. Thanks for hanging out with us. Enjoy Miami.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Great
Thanks,
stuff
Dan.
from Dan previewing the game. Coming up next, the Falcons hired that man. Does he already regret it? The breaking news today might change the answer to that question.
And I didn't have any gym equipment. I didn't live near a gym. So I would watch TV, and every commercial break, I'd jump on the floor and bust out some leg lifts from Jane Fonda, or I'd jump on the floor and bust out some push-ups from Herschel Walker. And my dad just saw me doing this for months. And he was like, yo, if you really are that committed, I'll work out with you. And that's really what got me going and doing anything that was athletic, was my dad.
And nobody realized we're fighting for world titles, jerking curtains for a guy from Australia and a dude from the Caucasus region. I would never open a show for a dude from Australia, just so you understand.
Why not?
Ever.
Why not? Why not?
That's not a combat-driven country. That's not real. You can't get a scholarship and go to a college for any combat form in Australia. It's not real.
I wanted to make this into what does it look like moving forward now with Travis Hunter, because the light went on, I think.
The two-way things, like, it's not off the table yet. The sky's not falling. Now the scoreboard reads 1 season-ending injury. I think if there's another season-ending injury next year, it's done. Maybe the silver lining is, well, he rehabs this knee and goes through this process, his body finally gets a rest.
What do you think could be the next NBA trend?
But I think you're going to see a lot more full court pressure from many teams in the league. So I'm interested to see that. Obviously, every year, everybody talks about wanting to play faster, and sustaining that through 7 games, I think, is easier than being able to sustain it for 82. You're going to see a lot more backcourt pressure in our league this upcoming year. And I like to think that us as a group and the success we had last season will have a lot to do with that.
The Atlanta Falcons hired Kevin Stefanski as their new head coach over the weekend. The 2-time NFL Coach of the Year met with the Falcons on Saturday became their next head coach over the course of the weekend, which took what was the hottest name off the market for many people. Stefanski, obviously all over the place as a coveted name, interviewing for several jobs. But now, today, we sit with more breaking news as this morning the Bills have fired Sean McDermott as their head coach. Not only have they fired Sean McDermott as their head coach, but also Brandon Beane, their GM, is staying on. This is an important point. Brandon Beane is not only staying on, but it looks like he's being promoted to the president of football operations. So they're giving more power to the GM as they strip Sean McDermott from this entire thing. And I can't help but wonder, Caroline, like, I get it. Stefanski gets offered the job. He took a job that was widely regarded by many to be the best of the available openings over the course of the weekend.
Yeah.
But now I see all of this happening in Buffalo, and I'm just sitting here wondering, at some point, will Kevin Stefanski wish that he'd waited 24 more hours? Like, would he love to have been considered to work with Josh Allen instead of either Michael Penix Jr. or Kirk Cousins, depending on which flavor of ice cream the Falcons put at quarterback this year?
I mean, I'm sure any coach in the sport of football would love the opportunity to work with Josh Allen. We would love the opportunity to work with Josh Allen because that's just the kind of talent that he is. But also, if you're Kevin Stefanski, I don't think you can play that coulda, shoulda, woulda game. I think if you're a football coach, you have to kind of be wired in the way of, look, you can't always be asking yourself, what if? You can't always be asking yourself, what if I did this? What if I would have waited? What if that? Because that's not just the kind of mindset you have to be in when taking one of these jobs. It's also the mindset you have to be in on the sidelines when you're making some of these tactical decisions. So I think overall, Kevin Stefanski is taking on a young roster that is built to compete in an easily winnable division. I mean, the Panthers won that division with a sub 500 record. Yes, there's questions at the quarterback position, which clearly there's no question of that in Buffalo, but there are questions in other areas of the roster. I mean, they need to upgrade the wide receiver position. They need to upgrade defensively. There's several areas where Buffalo is roster deficient. So would Kevin Stefanski love the opportunity to coach Josh Allen? Yeah, anyone would. But you can't be thinking to yourself, is there a better opportunity for me somewhere else as you're taking another head coaching position in the NFL?
You're probably right about all of that. And look, what really bothers me is you just said correctly that there are roster deficiencies all over this Bills organization. And what did they do? They promoted the person that created those roster deficiencies. Like, anytime the result isn't met, somebody is blamed. But the fact that Beane is being promoted and he has been the GM that's been in charge of this roster, and this roster isn't good enough, makes no sense to me. So, as we have Stefanski up here, you've got to feel like Stefanski's team had an eye on the Buffalo opportunity. And look, realistically, this is Josh Allen. This is like, what's interesting about Buffalo is this puts a wild wrinkle in it for everybody else, right? Like, if you are a fan of a team right now that has a young quarterback and you're sitting back saying, oh man, we want to find our head coach. We need a quarterback whisperer. We need Clint Kubiak to come over here and save our offense. We want one of these young, brilliant offensive minds to come in to Tennessee to work with Cam Ward, or to come into Vegas to work with the Raiders because they're going to get Fernando Mendoza. If you've been selling yourself on we're going to get a young, brilliant offensive mind, now you got to ask yourself, why in the hell would a young, brilliant offensive mind want to work with any of these quarterbacks not named Lamar or Josh when the opportunity to work with Lamar and Josh is there? Like, we have two annual MVP finalists sitting here with head coaching positions opening. I think that this changes the trickle-down effect of all of the open jobs. If you're sitting there saying we need an offensive mind, you got to understand that now, at best, you're third on the list, maybe fourth on the list of any coach that actually has options that wants to work with a talented quarterback.
Yeah, like if you're the Browns, if you're the Titans, you're like, seriously? Because we've seen the Titans. They already had to cancel a trip to Baltimore to cancel their conversation with John Harbaugh because he was like, yeah, no thanks. I'm good on the Titans job. I'll take the Giants job. Back to the Brandon Beane of it all. Can I ask, what is the president of football operations? Like, who served in that role previously? Was it a role previously?
They didn't have
if it wasn't a role previously, are we just adding lines onto Brandon Beane's name tag?
They're
What
adding
what is
power.
actually new? What actually changes for Brandon Beane? Because I'm reading, and look, we are learning this in real time with all of you. So I'm kind of reading this in real time. With the addition of the president of football operations tag, he will oversee the coaching staff. Isn't that the job of the general manager anyway?
Well, think about this. Harbaugh specifically fought in his contract for clarity that he does not report to Joe Schoen in any way for the Giants. He reports directly to ownership. So they're creating a structure that says Brandon Beane is going to be in charge of scouting and coaching and the free agents and everything on top of that. So they're creating a ladder system that everything looks directly to Brandon Beane. They're saying that Brandon Beane should be the end-all be-all for every decision that's made. And I guess my question to that is, what in the hell has Brandon Beane done with his job that deserves that level of autonomy, that level of power? I don't understand that at all. To me, that's like certainly when the Giants hire Harbaugh, I understand Harbaugh saying, "Great, I'm not working with that guy, with Joe Schoen. He can execute my vision. I'm going straight to ownership." I get that from some coaches. You definitely put yourself organizationally in a situation where you're sending a clear message to every candidate that this is the delineation of power and this is the way it's going to go. So this person, not owners, this person will be your direct boss every single day. I think that does play into, think about the Titans experience. We've talked so much with Mike Vrabel and who he responded to there. I think that's the message they're sending is, hey, here's our clear power structure and how it will work.
I think while I don't agree with Brandon Beane having that much power, because I don't think that you should get more power after you assembled a roster that just was not good enough to compete for a Super Bowl when you have the best quarterback on the planet, I do think that's smart. I do think it's smart for the Buffalo Bills to say, this is what our power structure will be. I have always said that I wholeheartedly believe in clear delineation of responsibility within organizations, that I believe in organizational structure, that collaboration and coach sometimes has final say, but also sometimes doesn't. Who does the drafting? We don't know. I think that is so off kilter, and I think that is so dysfunctional that organizations should have clear, delineations of, hey, this is your job. This is what Brandon Beane does, that Brandon Beane has sole ownership of decision-making for this organization. I do think that is a smart thing in theory. I do not think that it is a smart thing for the kind of person that has just as much, if not even more, question marks about the capability of doing his job as Sean McDermott had. This, to me, shows me that the Pegula family said it's not a problem with talent. It was a problem with talent development. That the ingredients were given to Sean McDermott and he didn't properly cook with them. I don't agree with that, because I think anybody with two eyeballs can see, look, Keon Coleman's not cutting it. We can see that. I think anybody with two eyeballs can look at the Bills' run defense and say, you just don't have it. You just do not have enough talent on that side of the ball. I disagree with the person. I don't disagree with the structure, but the Bills now are kind of putting themselves in a corner of looking at head coaches that don't want that kind of organizational power, that are okay with seceding a certain amount of say that maybe they might get elsewhere.
Right, and that's what we agree, that you need to have a clear line of how decision-making is done. And I think what happens most of the time is, I always say, very simply, who's the face of your organization? So Harbaugh is now the face of the Giants. There's no question about it, which is why he doesn't want to report to Joe Schoen. He's basically saying, Joe Schoen can execute my vision. I don't really give it to him. He's outside my purview, right? Like, that makes sense to me. What the Bills are saying right now, to me, by giving Brandon Beane this title, is that they're making Brandon Beane the face of the Bills moving forward, which does play into how coaches are going to want this to all go down. The fact that he's not just being retained as the GM, he's being promoted, tells you you're not going to have a Liam Cohen type situation here where coach comes in and says, well, I don't want to work with that guy, and the organization moves on. They just promoted him. So they're telling you that they think Brandon Beane being the face of how the Bills move forward is the solution. And to your point, I don't think he's done a good enough job to deserve that level of autonomy. Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. I do agree that you have to have a very clear power structure. And sometimes in some organizations, that's the coach. And in some organizations, it's the GM. However it is that it's clear. I think it's curious that the Bills have chosen this morning to put all their eggs in the Brandon Beane basket. To your point, it just screams that the Bills believe that Sean McDermott wasn't doing a good enough job with the glorious talent that they were given. And I I don't see it that way. This does become one of the most desirable jobs on the open market, though. So in a world where everybody's watching constantly to see who their team is interviewing, I would just caution you. You're pressing pause right now because there are very few candidates with options that are going to take a bad job without at least talking to the best jobs on the market first. Let's see what that means for some of these coaches and coordinators. We'll keep you updated right here tomorrow at 9 a.m. We'll be back for the latest breaking news. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for watching Yahoo Sports Daily. Come back tomorrow.
I wrote down some words I have felt. Maybe you can compile your own list throughout the duration of LSU pursuing Lane Kiffin. I felt entertained. I found myself in disbelief. I felt a lot of intrigue. I felt disgust, fatigue. There's excitement. There's sadness. I felt all these things. So if you've been out there and you've just been watching this and you felt one emotion throughout this whole thing, are you even alive?
How much time did it take for you to kind of acclimate to how they want to do things on both ends of the floor?
It's really simple if you think about it and you understand the game. You know, at the time we had the two best shooters, possibly might be the two best shooters that the game's ever seen. And, you know, my style of play was being a defender. It was easy. Get a stop, get one of them the ball, you know, get them open. There's nothing really much to it.
How are we feeling now? Because it's like, it's not the guys that we're used to seeing, but to put in a performance like this, obviously instills in me a lot of confidence for the World Cup. What does it do for you?
The way in which they're playing with fire, with skill, scoring goals. I'm happy, bro, because like it was some dark times when you go for last Copa America, CONCACAF Nations League. I'm happy to see it. It's looking like things are starting to work out now.
I think history will remember James Harden very fondly. I do. Over the course of time, they're going to see the amount of games played, the amount of big playoff moments, and you're going to see the lows as well. But I think people will look back on that era as the Warriors, this dynasty, and be like, oh, Houston was the team that gave them a real run. That's what I think people will look back on with Harden, and never mind everything you're saying.
Not the no-shows and like game sevens, because that's it. Like that's kind of what I'm going to think of.
I'm a Harden apologist. I am.
It sounds like it.